so much indeed, everyone, for staying with us. Let's switch gears now and look at, well, we are now projecting, the last conversation is about projection into the 10th National Assembly. Now we're projecting into the Tinubu presidency and what we should be expecting. And so when you hear the word kitchen cabinet, it has a history. There is an origin of that in governance. And in fact, it's far away from across the sea where this has been used. But if you look at that, I've tried as much as possible to do some research, find out who are usually those who are in the kitchen cabinet. And we've been able to identify a few persons. And these people in the kitchen cabinet are some of the people that the president sees the very first time he wakes up in the morning and gets to work. These are the people that, in fact, sometimes they say are the last people he sees before he goes to bed. When he wakes up in the morning, these are the first set of people that he sees. These are the work closer group. Now, so they include the ADC to the president. Is almost everywhere where the president is. The state chief of protocol, the director general of the DSS, the NSA, and the special advisor on media, the principal secretary, the secretary to the government of the federation, and in fact, the chief of staff, which sometimes could be as powerful as the sitting president wanted. So I wanted to get someone to explain this to us, because we're trying to set the agenda for the incoming administration, the Tinubu presidency, the president-elect and the vice president-elect. How do they go? What do they need to know? Some of them are familiar with this. But you, as a Nigerian, how familiar are you with this? I have joining me a spokesperson to former President Goodluck Jonathan, Mr. Niboro. He joins us live here in our studio. Thank you so much, Mr. Niboro, for joining us.
Thank you, sure. Thank you for having me.
How important are the kitchen cabinet members? You were one.
Well, it's interesting. I must tell you.
But you never worked in the kitchen.
Let me tell you.
You had your own office, not in the kitchen.
Interestingly, the president I served, President Jonathan, used to tell me and tell all of us that he doesn't believe in kitchen cabinet. So one day, he made that comment in a public forum, not a very large public, but in a meeting. And I made a beeline with him into the office. And I told him, Mr. President, this is about the second, third time you're saying this thing. Please don't say it again. Because your kitchen cabinet is actually a group of people that insulates you from certain kind of issues that come up in society. In fact, from your kitchen cabinet, you can actually find somebody to fire, you know, if you have issues that you need to explain to the public. You know, the kitchen cabinet is such that it doesn't, I saw the rundown you made. Well, it's an excellent rundown, but sometimes the kitchen cabinet is made up of people who don't even have any appointment in government.
Really?
Sometimes they're even more powerful.
No title?
No title.
But they are always in the villa. They are always with the president.
They have direct access to the president. There are such people that can call the president on phone. And the president will pick their call. You know, presidents don't pick calls. As a rule, presidents don't pick calls.
As soon as they assume office.
But yes, but because he's a human being, he has his phone. There are people who have that number. They will call and the president will pick. And he will tell his chief security officer, please, Mr. So-so is coming by 8 p.m. Put his name at the gate. Some of them actually get villa tags, so they don't need to be cleared at the gates.
They are not official staff?
No.
But they are as powerful as it comes?
Probably more powerful.
Wow.
There are such people like that. I can give you an example. I don't know if I'm at liberty to do that in present government. People like Alhaji Mamandara. Those are the leaders of the kitchen cabinet of the current president. So, does he hold any office? He doesn't. But he decides.
But they are advisors.
Yes.
The president consults.
Yes, the president consults.
They get consultancy kind of.
Yes, because sometimes.
But can we call them consultants? Because if they are not employed by government, but they work for the government by proxy because they advise the president. So could they be regarded as consultants?
No, not consultants in the formal.
Yeah, in the formal, but no. So I'm saying that they are not officials of government, but the president consults, they advise the government.
And many successful presidencies have such people. You know why? Because they don't hold any government office. They have greater interface with the society outside. So they're able to tell the president more directly what's going on out there. unlike somebody who probably has an office, he goes to work from, in fact, the most presidential staff, they don't even have closing time, The president is your principal. When the president is at work, you're at work. When the president closes, that's when you go and start your own work. So it's non-stop. But people who don't have such specific appointments, they have freer time to interact and interface with society. And they give the president even more critical feedback than sometimes his own aides. So you cannot reduce kitchen cabinet to people who have those appointments. Of course,
but these are usually the ones highlighted. These are the ones that we've seen over time. They have been consistent, in and around the president.
You are correct. You are correct. All of them, and even more that are not there, are members of that kitchen cabinet. But their roles, the kitchen cabinet is of such crucial importance. Like I said, it gives the president, there are meetings after meetings. The president holds meetings every day with all kinds of people. In those meetings, the president makes certain commitments in those meetings. But before he goes into those meetings, there are people who meet with him. Tell him, look, Mr. President, are you going to do this is what to expect, this is what to expect, this is what to expect. Because they have had interactions with people who are coming to such meetings. So when the president is making a commitment, because when the president makes a commitment, it becomes very, very much like word of law.
So let's look at some of this. So we're looking at the Tinubu presidency, which will take effect on the 29th of May.
Yes.
And usually, I remember when you were announced, it's probably the president makes an announcement of maybe 3 people at the first day. I mean, such we see also with governors, the chief press secretary, as the case may be for some governors, the secretary to the government, which is very also crucial, and also the chief of staff.
That's correct.
These are probably the 3 first major appointments that have been made. How critical are these 3?
Yes, they are strategic because the presidency virtually rests on them. The first task of the president is to fill vacancies. That's his first task, most urgent task, to let people know that he has hit the ground running. The 3 key people, the chief of staff, secretary to government, and the SA media are the first 3 appointments. In some cases, it's actually even more chief of staff than the SGF. But of course, if the president has the good fortune of having somebody that's ready-made, that he knows this can be SGF, that's perfect for him. Because between him, the SGF, and the chief of staff, they will make all the necessary appointments. Then the SA media is one to announce
the public.
Yes.
So, I mean, are there balance or consideration? I mean, ethnic, regional, are those kind of considerations important for those who make up the kitchen cabinet? Yeah,
well, the kitchen cabinet does not require ethnic balancing because it's really an informal cabinet.
It doesn't fall into the constitutional provision.
No, it's an informal cabinet. It's a group of people who are very close to the president.
And there could be people that have been working with him before.
Mostly people who he has learned to trust their opinions, learned to trust their judgment, people he knows that these are honest people who are honest and straight down with him, people who can, when everybody's out of there, can tell them that, Mr. President, you are talking nonsense. There are people like that. Presidents need such people. Those are the people that form his kitchen cabinet. It's not necessarily a statutory thing that you now need, but usually, for you to attain the office of president, you will have had a certain kind of national
reach.
National reach. You have contacts nationally. So I expect that in Asiwaju Tinubu's kitchen cabinet, you have prominent people from the north. Many of them, the northern governors.
There are names, for example. Let's begin with the issue of chief of staff, for example.
That's correct.
And there are interesting names that have been thrown up.
Yes.
2 of them I hear are they are members elect in the House of Representatives.
Yes.
Sitting, the name of Femi Gbajabiamila, the Speaker.
Yes.
We saw pictures of him with the President-elect.
Yes.
Honorable James Faleke, his name was the Secretary of the campaign.
Yes.
In fact, the Minister of Works,
Yes.
Babatunde Fashola, his name has been thrown up.
That's right.
Do these kind of people fit in, from your own experience, into the shape of a chief of staff? What is the role of a chief of staff?
All 3 of them are perfect for the role of chief of staff. Because let me tell you one thing about chief of staff. Chief of staff is somebody whose most significant qualification is the confidence of the president. The president cannot have a chief of staff he cannot trust. The president cannot have a chief of staff he doesn't know very well. Because chief of staff is somebody that can walk into the president's bedroom, who can knock the president's bedroom and say, Madam, are you there? Please, I want to come in. That's what the chief of staff is. It's usually somebody who's so close to the president that is like a brother from another mother, a sister from another mother. That's the chief of staff. So no matter his qualification, of course, before you will get to that point that you have the confidence of somebody who becomes the president, you too will be a man of status yourself, a man or woman of status yourself. You cannot just be some flotsam, jetsam from the village and no, you understand? So that is why you see I said that all 3 people you mentioned are eminently qualified for the position of chief of staff.
So if you look at the kind of president-elect that we have, so I imagine that the chief of staff is like a personal manager that tells you, sit down, president, stand up, president, go there, president. He's not coming. He will not see you. He will see you. This is his schedule. He approves and all of that. Am I right?
You are perfectly right.
So, out of all of these 3...
The chief of staff is somebody who can tell the president, Mr. President, you're not going for that meeting. And he asks, why can't I go for a meeting? Mr. President, you go for that meeting, this and this and this and this will be affected. You cannot go for that meeting. Sometimes, stubborn presidents will get up and go for the meeting. But usually, with better hindsight, many times, they look back and say, I wish I listened to this guy. You understand? Because chief of staff has more information than the president. The president is at the top of everything. He has a lot of information from security agencies and all that. But it is the chief of staff's bonding duty to synthesize all this information. Because many of the things that come to the president come in tens and tens of volumes. The chief of staff's job is to reduce these things to 1 or 2 pages, which are called executive summaries. Executive summaries for the president. Then, when the president is looking at it, he wants further information on certain aspects of that summary. It's okay, give me that volume. Let me see what these guys are arguing. You understand? So that's not somebody that you don't listen to, because it has far more information than you do as a president.
We've had some very, not going too far, Kyari, the late Kyari, who was chief of staff, may God rest his soul, to President Buhari. If you look at his profile, he has very outstanding academic profile.
Correct.
And you even look at the present chief of staff.
That's correct.
Who served in Darfur, in different parts of the world, in the United Nations. Professor Gambari comes with a very outstanding academic profile and professional profile too. And you look at the likes of the people that names have been coming up. Is it Fashola? Is the senior advocate of Nigeria? Is it Femi Gbajabiamila, Speaker of the House of Representatives? So you talk about James Faleke. He's over 60 years of age. He's a man of his own words too. So it comes as it is, and if you are to describe, not particularly mention any of these persons, the kind of person Bola Tinubu is, what kind of things should be on his mind? Let's assume he's watching tonight. A man that they say that the chief of staff sometimes is like the president pro tempore.
Well, that's a difficult question. I cannot pretend to be in Asiwaju's cabinet or the group of people who interact with him regularly. But watching from outside with my experience and knowledge and the contacts I have within his system, I know that, like I said, all 3 of them are qualified eminently. But it will appear that the pendulum might be swinging towards Gbajabiamila. Might be.
With what you are seeing?
Yes, from what I see and what I hear. Might be. Not because the other 2 are less qualified, but also probably because the president might have even more fundamental assignments for those other people too. So it's not like being chief of staff, being chief of staff or not, it's not a rejection. It is also because the president has looked and said, okay, this guy, Fashola, I need him here. I think he'll do better in XYZ place. So let me have this guy with me here, and let me put Fashola in that place so that I can go to bed with my eyes shut. Ditto Falike.
So we'll go on another break.
Yes.
So I imagine that if you want to know how serious the incoming government is, you look at the shape and the quality of his kitchen cabinet.
That's correct.
Isn't it?
Excellent.
All right, well, let's take a break. Niboro is still with me, everyone, and we're looking at the kitchen cabinet, setting the agenda for the Tinubu president. Sort of making his job easier, isn't it? If we prepare the minds of Nigerians for the Herculean task before him, because this nation belongs to all of us, and it must not fail. We come back after the break to talk. For staying with us, Niboro is a former spokesperson to President Goodluck Jonathan, and is giving us insight in the workings of the presidential villa as we anticipate on 29th of May when a new government will be inaugurated. That's Bola Tinubu and Kashim Shettima. So if we move away from the chief of staff, I mean, as you said, that there are other positions that may not even get titles that are also very important. The principal secretary, what does that character or the person do?
For the presidency, post Obasanjo, is, because of the issues between Atiku and Obasanjo in that presidency, there was developed a concept of the single presidency. Before then, you had two distinct offices in the villa: office of the president and the office of the vice president. Both had their own budgets, both had their own staffing, independent of one another. But with what happened, what Obasanjo saw as the Atiku challenge in the second term of the administration, the former principal secretary of the State House, Stephen Oronsaye, permanent secretary, said that they drew up a concept of the single presidency. And that is why I keep telling people today that the vice president of Nigeria is probably the weakest vice president anywhere in the world. Because the vice president actually functions these days very much like the #1 aide of the president, because you have a single office. In this sense, let me explain this to you. The vice president doesn't have his own budget. It's the budget of the president. So anything he requires, he writes for the president's approval. So you see, before now, he has approving authority. His aides can write to him, he approves straight to PAMSEC, State House, and they will release. But these days you have to apply to the president.
Some of the aides of the vice president, the titles are so all of the president in the office of the vice president.
All the aides of the vice president are appointed to the president. So you have even the SSA media, for instance, to the vice president, is SSA media to the president, bracket OVP, office of the vice president. The reason is this, strategy is this: the president can reach beyond you, reach beyond the vice president and fire anyone, which was not the case. What happened was, you and I will recall when during the Atiku, where you had people like my senior brother Garba Shehu, who was spokesman to the vice president. Yeah, it was like a flat-out war between him and the late Remioyo. You understand? So they were, big bad. You understand? So all that changed. Stephen Oronsaye did this. So all aides of the vice president are actually appointed to the president. And that's the structure that has been maintained. He worked with Yaradua, worked for Jonathan, and now it's the same structure that has been maintained. And it's likely it may not change. I mean, if Tinubu, or you think that Tinubu could change it with the character of a Kashim Shettima? It is not likely to change, because what actually counts is the fluidity of the relationship between the president and his vice. In fact, it's probably even better for the structure to be like that if the vice president is a smart guy, stay on the right side of the president, you can actually get more for your people or for the areas you want to do things for, from the president's budget than you will have had from your budget, which is probably smaller. So now you guys have one budget. Although within that budget, there are outlines of this area for the vice president, etc. But you can get actually more. You understand?
So the principal,
so it works fine.
So you see the principal private secretary of the president,
yes,
is with him every of the time.
That is why I brought this.
Yeah.
So ordinarily, the principal private secretary to the president is actually supposed to be the deputy chief of staff to the president. But because of this structure, the chief of staff to the vice president is the deputy chief of staff to the president. You understand what I'm saying? You see, so you have that structure. You cannot now have another deputy chief of staff in the office of the president. It will create all kinds of relationship issues.
Title clash.
That's correct. So the deputy chief of staff in the office of the president is actually the principal private secretary.
So, so statutorily, as soon as the president is being announced, his ADC officially is also announced.
Well, the president appoints his ADC. Okay. Yes.
So it's also an appointment by the president by himself.
Oh, it is a prerogative of the president.
As the chief and the commander-in-chief of the armed forces.
The positions that the president doesn't need to consult anyone to appoint is number 1, the chief of staff. Number 2 is SA Media. Number 3 is ADC. Number 4 is chief security officer. Those are appointments that are personal and direct to him.
He needs a CSO, a chief security officer, that takes care of the villa.
Oh, yes. In fact, in the structure of the presidency, the chief security officer is actually more prominent than the AD camp. Because he's the one that's in charge of everything.
He has the global picture.
In fact, if the chief security officer decides that the ADC will not go to work today, it doesn't happen, but in terms of power, because he oversees the entire structure of the villa. But usually the ADC is from the military, and he has a direct interface with the commander of the Guards Brigade. It's because the Guards Brigade, that's the outer cordon security of the president, while the CSO takes charge of the inner cordon of presidential security.
So where does the CSO come from? From the police or from
usually
from the plain uniform?
By culture from DSS. By culture from DSS. Very senior officer of the DSS. Usually the president's chief.
So the vice president gets an ADC
but that doesn't mean
from the Nigerian police force.
Yes,
the vice
president's ADC is usually from the police force.
So the VP decides his own.
Of course, it's a personal appointment.
Okay.
He would now recommend that appointment to the president, and the president approves it for him.
Is there anything that the vice president can approve with the structure that has been laid out in the villa?
Like I said, the vice president of Nigeria is not a very powerful position. But, let me put it this way, clarity. Power sometimes is more by perception. If the vice president is a smart guy and knows how to be the president's right-hand man, he is the most powerful person in the villa after the president.
Let me spend the next few minutes to quickly touch on the other roles, which are important. And it's also good, this kind of information that you're sharing tonight, good for Nigerians to know the workings of the presidential villa. The National Security Advisor, does he need the approval of any other authority for him to approve, or he's also at the prerogative of the president?
He is appointed at the prerogative of the president, but because of his role, the president will need a little bit of more consultation. Yes. There are names that are flying around now, and these are people who, when you hear their names, you know that, okay, these people have had relationship with the president-elect. I hear the name of General Dambazo. I hear the name of Nuhu Ribadu. These are well-known names. You understand? And, I may be wrong. I may be wrong, but these are just, we are media people. We hear things. Yeah. We talk to people, and these are names that are coming. You know that General Dambazo was head of security for the campaign. Of course, you and I know the relationship between Nuhu Ribadu and the president-elect. You see, so again, these are people that the president must know to trust, but people who also have their own capacity.
How close is the relationship of the president and the NSA? How often does the NSA see the president?
Oh, the NSA is so strategically placed that sometimes, if circumstances demand, it can even overwhelm the chief of staff because it's security. So if we have a situation of national security crisis, he takes prominence. But you know, he's a special advisor. Very much like even the SA media. He's a special advisor. But his role, his office, is of such prominence and of such strategic importance that he can over all other offices, given certain situations, all these circumstances.
All the security chiefs report to him. Is that right?
Well, not report to him. They actually report to the president. But that the structure of presidency is when you bring all those volumes, if you have a major crisis maybe happening around Sambisa Forest today, you are going to have to brief the president. But all that briefing you are going to give the president may have a lot of technical details. The president will understand them because he's an intelligent person, but he doesn't really know everything you're talking about.
The details.
He doesn't know those details. You understand? Because he's intelligent, he's bright.
So it's the NSA that guides him through.
So it's the NSA that gives all these briefings to.
Yeah.
So it's the NSA that now reduces things to executive summaries to the president.
Yeah.
So that is why you see the NSA becomes like a homing point for the service chiefs.
Let's bring this conversation home.
Thank you.
In all,
yes,
the kitchen cabinet is as important as it comes. If the president wants to be successful, he needs to get a fantastic kitchen cabinet. Is that right?
I agree with you 100%. If the president wants to succeed, he must have a kitchen cabinet. And let me tell you, the kitchen cabinet does not actually, it forms itself. As I'm talking to you now, there is already a kitchen cabinet. Those are the people who see the president at odd hours, the people who can reach him at any time, people who can call his phone and he picks the phone. That is the kitchen cabinet. They exist already.
Mr. Niboro, a former presidential spokesperson, he worked with former President Goodluck Jonathan. Thank you so much for the insight you're giving to us. It doesn't come without experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.